The impact of Horizon Zero Dawn and Zelda Breath of the Wild is not as big anymore, according to the Xbox boss Phil Spencer. Here to discuss with me is of course Zach Sharps. Hey man.
What's up, man? It's finding it really hard to like Phil Spencer as much as I did before. He keeps saying stupid stuff like constantly. It's like, what the hell, dude?
I mean, of course, he's saying that single-player type of linear story games don't have the impact as they did before. It's more about the service-based games with the microtransactions and that live on for a very long time, because yeah, a large player base is now playing that. So then when a huge single-player game comes around, it's huge when it happens, but then it kind of dies off, right? That's what he's saying, and a lot of people kind of took it the wrong way. So he then went to Twitter not saying that Xbox would focus primarily on these types of service-based games like a Destiny, like a Division, but just saying that that's the state of the industry right now. So what you said, yeah, it's hard to like Phil Spencer right now, so you don't really agree with him. What's your stance on this?
I don't agree with his wording. And the reason why I don't agree with his wording is that the reason why the PlayStation 4, among other reasons, is destroying the Xbox One right now and will destroy the Scorpio, because none of the issues that the Xbox One has are going to be fixed with the Scorpio unless they just completely redesign everything in their entire philosophy. But the reason why Sony is killing it right now is because the greatness awaits slogan. The fact that they have these great IPs that are randomly popping up, that are sort of putting the carrot at the end of the stick for people to look forward to. And whether they be, multiplayer games or single player games, it doesn't really matter because they're grandiose. They're really, really cool looking titles that people want to aspire to being able to play. And that's one of the things that I really don't understand about Phil in this regard, is that yes, statistically, those service-based titles, aka more online-oriented games, do rack in a lot more money. But does that mean that money is the only thing that creates value for a platform? No, that's not at all what that means. What that means is that's a complement to something else that creates value for a platform. And in Sony's case, it's their single-player IPs that are just fantastic. For Microsoft, it used to be sort of like Halo multiplayer and stuff like that, and Forza and racing games in general. But now it's like, well, that's not really working for them. So what is the thing that creates value for the consumer that will make people jump ship? And that's where they brought up sort of like Netflix of gaming and stuff like that, and what Phil Spencer sort of goes into as something that is somewhat of a path forward for the industry, and what is probably going to be implemented within the Xbox philosophy moving forward, because usually if a head of a division is saying something, it means that they're doing said something in a meaningful way.
They of course have Xbox Game Pass coming with like older games that you can just subscribe for $10 a month and get like access to these games, download them instead of streaming. So that's the difference, of course, with PlayStation Now. And PlayStation Now will also have PS4 games, but yeah, it's not out right now. But the Xbox Game Pass will kind of do that, and he kind of thinks that that's where these type of linear story games should live, and that's where they kind of have their they can still be successful there, right? But yeah, I think you made a great point with that. If we look at the PlayStation 4, of course, it's not only that they have the awesome exclusive games, it's also that Sony just came out of the bat with "We are for the gamers," and the Xbox was of course your Netflix machine, and nobody really liked that and was too expensive. So of course that also really helped PlayStation. They now have exclusive deals for these service-based games, like the Call of Duties, like Battlefront 2, Destiny. So that also helped that they have the exclusive deals for that. But I really believe that, for example, for a PC player, you are, for example, mostly a PC player, but you're still looking at the PS4, like, okay, while, as I'm playing mostly PC games that take a lot of time, but Horizon is, for example, a great game that I can just dive into for tens of hours and then go back to my PC games and still have that sort of super 4K, in your case you of course have a PS4 Pro and a 4K TV as well, experience, while those PC games will not have that kind of fidelity in terms of graphics and stuff like that, and also are not really that story based, because they are those types of service-based games. So if you want those types of experience, you are looking at a PlayStation 4 as well, and that might not be your kind of main focus, because your main focus will be, maybe not in your case, but in some people's case, Overwatch or League of Legends on the PC. But yeah, you will also be looking at those awesome single-player games. You can just play for a little bit and then dive back into your service-based games, because there can only be so many service-based games. I think that Overwatch is doing really well, is really like interesting, and bravo for Blizzard, because they made a first-person shooter in the already crowded market, with a Battlefield, with a Battlefront, with Call of Duty, you name it. There are the Counter-Strike, of course, but they kind of made their own spot there. Well, you see that with the Xbox exclusives, they are having a hard time right now. I mean, they were huge before. Of course, it's now a B-tier developer that is making them, not the guys that kind of started with the franchise. But probably also because a lot of people are looking at Halo and thinking, okay, I can play Halo, or can play Call of Duty or Battlefield or Destiny that a lot of my friends are playing. So yeah, you're kind of competing with the titles that are also multi-platform. So even if you're not playing with your friends, it's still cooler to, for example, you're playing on Xbox and your friends are playing on PS4. It's still cool that you can talk about Destiny with each other, for example, Halo, and yeah, that doesn't really work. So I think that the kind of tactic for Sony is just really smart, just partnering up with the service-based games for exclusive content, but focus on single-player, awesome set pieces that you want to invite your friends over to say, look at this amazing game, type of games, than to focus on other service-based games that will compete with the games that will be way bigger no matter what. So it's really interesting. Although I kind of think that we are in a spot that I think that Ubisoft is, of course, a good example of where a lot of people think the industry is moving to. I still believe that there will always be single-player type of games. I mean, one of the biggest games this generation was The Witcher 3. I mean, that was as big as a service-based game like The Division, right? So that maybe not in terms of digital sales, and that's why Ubisoft is really going that way. They really see, okay, if we make this Ghost Recon game and really add new content to it, rapidly do microtransactions, we will get way more money. So they're really focusing on that.
It also comes down to the fact that it's much easier to create a service-based game that is fun with friends than creating a massive single-player game that is believable and immersive. Because with like the Witcher 3, I played that on PC, 1440p maxed out. That game is gorgeous. I think in some ways it just completely destroys Horizon, because with Horizon it's limited by the PS4, the PS4 Pro in the case of what I played it on, and I also played with 1080p on monitor as well, besides it's my 4K, so I've tested out in both realms. And I do notice a lot of graphical issues with like the rendering and the distance and so on and so forth that The Witcher 3 just never had on my 1440p screen on my PC, because I have such a beast machine that I was able to push it to its limit, and as a result got really great graphics out of it. So there's a lot of, you know, sort of drawbacks here and there in regards to creating a single player game, because you have to make it believable and immersive. In the case of Horizon, Guerrilla Games did that because they know how to utilize the tech at the PS4. So even though I see those flaws in the graphics of Horizon, the overall beauty is there, and it allows me to be immersed in that game, unlike a lot of other games that I've tried to play on consoles, just because I have such a powerful machine. But service-based games, there's a lot of things that you can get away with because you have other people playing with you, that, like, for example, The Division, terrible storyline, terrible world for the most part. It was a good-looking game. It had good gunplay, but it also had gunplay that was very squishy in terms of, what is it called? Not button, bullet spongy? There we go, bullet spongy.
Oh yeah, the enemies had you had to kill or yeah, shoot a lot for them to drop. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah,
that's right.
The bullet sponge mechanics is what bothered a lot of people, but the gunplay itself, in terms of like shooting and the feeling that you get when you shoot, was there. And so there were some mechanics there. There were some mechanics that weren't, but because certain mechanics that make the game playable were there, it allowed people to have fun with their friends, and that game became a booming success. But no one's ever going to say that game had a great story. That game was the most immersive thing I've ever played. You know, that game is one of the best games of all time. You know, I don't think anyone's ever really going to say that. But a lot of people have thousands of hours in that game, at least, you know, hundreds of hours, thousands of hours. And that's what a software-based, not a software, but a service-based game really offers, is that longevity. And with the longevity comes the opportunity to capitalize off of your customers who are playing the game with microtransactions, DLC, so on and so forth. And we see the same thing with Destiny, or Destiny 2, that already has an expansion pass announced, and it's not even out yet. And that's something that single-player games is really can't do. And
although you do see it like change a little bit, like that single player games come out and that they do get more support than that they used to, because that's also what Phil mentions, or I think the Guardian article itself, because the Guardian article, or Guardian like interviewed Phil about this, and then he did these quotes, but they said that making a AAA game is super expensive, so to then immediately move on to the next would be a shame, because you can easily make new content for the game you've already put out. And we do see that a lot with games as well. I mean, even Zelda, like a game that normally never got DLC, is now getting DLC and updates and stuff like that. And Horizon, we also know that there's a expansion coming. But what I do see though is that a lot of people are still asking for multiplayer in Horizon. So they still want to play this game for the whole year. They want Horizon to be a service-based game, and I can totally relate. I think that, for example, how Guerrilla Games is handling Horizon, they add a lot of new stuff, but they could also think about what The Witcher did. Like The Witcher, also single-player game, but they kept adding content to it, so they hold players to their game for 2 months, I think it was, like with free content every week. I love to see that for other single-player games as well. Because then you kind of combine the two, right? The awesome things of a service-based game that you just can keep on playing without the fact that you don't have a really good story, like you said. But also, if you spend 1,000 hours in The Division, you can't spend 1,000 hours in another service-based game. So I really think these single-player linear games are here to stay, of course, and still have a big impact. But maybe not for a longer time than a service-based game, or maybe not in terms of financial success. But
they definitely won't have the financial prowess of like a service-based title, just because of the longevity of them. However, what they will do is create value for the platform that they're on, and that I think is more valuable for a company than just sort of getting a one-off, runaway sort of service-based title success, like a Division, for instance, because that game's available on all platforms. But what if you had a killer app, a killer game that is available only on your platform, that is, a single-player, blockbuster, beautiful experience that you just can't get anywhere else? Then what are people going to most likely do? Well, if there's enough value on a particular platform, they're going to pick up that platform. That's why
play the Division there as well. Like
exactly, and that's why I own a PS4 Pro, because despite the fact I do have a lot of single-player games that are really stunning that I can play on my PC, the fact that there are some games that are still away from that platform that I like, that are only available on the PS4, draws me over there to purchase that platform. Now, I just rather, purchase that and play it on my PC, of course, but the fact that I can't is what sort of makes me hop that ship. And so if Phil Spencer thinks that getting rid of that, if that's in the back of his mind, and it's sort of like, and he's sort of thinking, oh, well, we could just sort of have smaller titles, indie titles, have our normal Halo, Gears of War, Turn 10 titles, so on and so forth, that release over the years, and people will just hop ship because we have the most powerful hardware. he's sadly mistaken, because when it comes down to it, people care about the experiences that they have on a particular platform. And right now, you can get more varied experiences on the PlayStation 4 than you can on the Xbox One, because the Xbox One, for the most part, just has the same stuff that you could have got years ago, maybe with better graphics, maybe with a continued storyline. But I mean, what are you really going to get out of a new Halo game? I mean, it's pretty much going to be the same crap. I mean, they sort of open it up to chase Cortana and try and, you know, destroy her or whatever. Well, what if you don't want to do that? What if you're like me and think that that's a huge cop-out to make 3 more games? You know, what if you play Gears of War and you're like, oh, well, it's this sort of same old, it didn't really do too much, I don't think I'm going to buy the next one. Okay, well, there's 2 games off your list.
They have to change it,
Yeah,
they have to do something, like, make it more interesting. I mean, what we see with God of War is, I think, a good example of a game that was super popular on the PS2 and the PS3, and now it's totally like changing in terms of how it looks, in terms of the perspective and stuff like that. And that really makes the franchise just way more interesting right now than just another God of War that we already played multiple times. So I think that has to happen. But to round this out a little bit, I think that you hit the nail on the head with the fact that there are service-based games. They are huge, but if you are going to pick a platform to play them on, you're also looking at the games that you can play on the other platform, and those are the games like Uncharted and Horizon. And you know that, I mean, it's sometimes also scared if you, for example, know, okay, Destiny, if I want to really get a lot of stuff out of that, I have to put in hundreds of hours. While with an Uncharted and with an Horizon, you know, okay, after X amount of hours, nowhere near the amount of hours you have to put into a service game, I can still have a great experience. So I think that really helps. But one thing I also want to know, you of course said that service-based games are maybe easier to make than single-player games, and in terms of story and stuff like that, of course that's true. But there's also the infrastructure and stuff like that, and stuff where Ubisoft is still struggling with in terms of service and stuff like servers and stuff like that.
Yeah, but I come from the land of PC where servers aren't really an issue. Because when it comes down to it, I can't really recall last time Steam was down, and if it was down, it was only down for like a minute. And that's because a lot of the developers use their own servers or other platforms, and that's how they get their stuff, their infrastructure. And also, when it really comes down to it too, service-based games on the PC are very plentiful. I mean, you have a MOBA popping up what seems like every day. You have, you know, a new MMO coming around every once in a while, and a lot of them are just sort of the same old experience. Every once in a while you get one that's different, and that's really the ones that, you know, do really well, and people are like, oh, that's really cool, and those are the ones that people play. But there's a lot of a lack of effort in these games that I see on a daily basis covering free-to-play games at mmobomb.com. And so, that's mainly what I'm sort of pointing at, because those games tend to be the most popular. I mean, if we look at, I'm not saying it's, you know, a terrible game, League of Legends is the biggest game that's out there, or Dota 2 even. You know, another big game that's out there. You have King of Fighters Online, which is still a massive game. You know, you have Star Wars: The Old Republic, you know, still a massive game. I mean, that game, from the last thing I saw, it made like $250 million for BioWare last year. So it's one of those things where there's so many different service-based games out there, and so many of them are so, you know, I guess you could say simplistic, that they're, in my mind, easier to create and more profitable to create. So that's just to clarify.
Okay, good one. Because I think, for example, a Destiny or a I mean, they've been working on this for a very long time, like other huge MMOs. That's of course different than a new Uncharted title. Okay. Well, let's round it out. We are curious to hear what you think. So, do you think that Phil Spencer is right that single-player linear games are less impactful than they were? Or do you think that he is wrong, of course, and that these games still have a huge impact, and that the service-based games are fine, but not really like where it's all... Yeah, because he's kind of saying that is where it's at right now in the gaming industry. Let us know in the comments down below. Like the video if you did, and subscribe for way more gaming discussions with Zach. Hey, Zach. Thanks, man.
Yeah. Hey, Zach? What? Huh? Thanks. Bye.
I don't know what happened, but yeah, of course the intro of the outro also has to Has to be weird. So yeah, thought about that.
I'm like, wait, is this deja vu? Are we restarting? What?
Goodbye, guys.